Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the one and only podcast on the net dedicated 88.2% to the greatest game in the world.
Advanced Squad Leader.
That's right, boys and
And
girls.
I'm Jeff, and that's Dave. We are fat and happy after a.
Jeff, you are not fat.
Well, I'm happy.
After your Thanksgiving?
Yeah, actually, it's been a week since Thanksgiving or something, maybe a little bit longer. And but I had a good one. Did you have a good one, Dave?
Yes, indeed, in Ohio.
I think it should be an international holiday. Really,
it should be.
Yeah, like Christmas. I think there's no reason for it to only be U.S. But when I become king, that's what I'm going to get done. Important stuff like that. So what's new with you?
Well, we had the van in for brake work.
Uh-oh.
Which I let go a little too long. They did the calipers, but then the cylinder ran out of.
How'd you know it was too long? Did you run into somebody?
They were not working well.
Yeah, well, that's not good.
Yeah, I should have been a little more aggressive about this is definitely wrong. But funny story. So I went in to pick it up, got the key, lady behind the desk, talk a little bit. Okay, see ya. Another couple comes up and they're talking to her about their car. And I look outside to get my van, and I got blocked in because they have 3 spaces. And I was in the middle. So I went back into the store, and the 2 people were finishing telling her about their vehicle. And I was like, oh, I'm locked. I'm blocked in. Yeah. And then she finishes with them and she goes, Dave, what's behind you? And I thought she meant like literally. I looked behind me like, what is behind me? Like a spider or and she just started laughing and the other couple were like, what's going on? And I was laughing. She was laughing. And then I'm like, oh, you mean what's behind my van? Of course. And I walked out, came back. A blue Toyota. Okay, I got the key. We'll move it.
Ah.
What's behind you?
Yeah.
Huh? And then Don stayed with us, Laura's dad, and his buddy called him, who can talk a lot. And without mentioning names, not that it's bad or anything, but it was hilarious.
Well, you don't have to don't mention his first name, just mention his last name. There we go.
His friend called. Don puts everything on the speakerphone, because he's 80s. It's hard to hear. And Laura and I are sitting on the couch to we mute the television while he talks. And the guy's going, oh, remember when we went shopping with our wives and we went shopping for something that's very elegant? Remember? And Laura's dad's going, no. We shopped for something we normally wouldn't buy. Yeah, you wear it in the winter, and you remember that? And he's like, no. And so I start going, a hat. And Laura's dad's, a hat? He's like, no, you'd wear it on your body. And I'm like, a coat. And Laura's dad, is it a coat? He goes, yes, right. Remember we were shopping with our wives and we're looking for a coat. Now, what kind of coat we were looking for, right? It's an extra warm, very expensive coat. And Laura's dad, Don, no. And I'm like, insulated coat. And I'm like, fur coat. Oh, fur coat? Yeah, right. Remember we were shopping for the fur coats with our wives. We never would have bought them. They're too expensive. But now there's a certain kind of fur coat. It's an animal, which very expensive. Do you know? And he's going, no. And Laura and I are looking at each other like, this is too adorable.
Yeah.
Right? And so then I'm going like, fox. goes, a fox coat? No, no, not. It's more like a darker colored animal. It's literally, Jeff.
Oh my
It
God.
was delightful. And then it's mink. So then he says, well, you won't believe what happened here in Ohio. Those people who are for nature broke into the mink farm and released a bunch of animals. Can you guess how many? Don's like, 100? It's like, no. Oh, no, Don, many more. 500? No, you won't believe this number. And it was 20. Jeff, I think it was 20,000.
Really?
And the next day it came up in my news feed.
Wow.
It was like 20,000 mink. And they're predators. And so that,
Well, how would I know that?
haven't you been attacked by a mink?
I have. It's rare. I guess it's more rare than I even know. They're predators. I didn't know that.
Well, they eat fish, other animals, birds, eggs,
Oh
all
wow.
that.
Well, they should be killed then and turned into coats. They deserve it.
So people were worried about their chicken coops.
Yeah.
And they said half of them stayed like on the farm,
Oh,
wandering around.
so they could sweep them up. They get a scoop, that big scoop like they used in Soylent Green. The truck comes up and scoops them up.
That's what Laura said. Like, how do they catch them all?
Yeah.
It's like traps. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how you attract a mink. Button?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Crazy though.
Yeah.
Kind of like to see that. Wouldn't you see all those animals running around?
I don't know. Maybe from a helicopter if they're predators.
Well, I think you could like kick them if they come close to you. I don't know.
That seems mean.
Get a broom. Get away from me. So anyway, it was delightful.
Well, it sounds like old age is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not subscribing to that, but I'm going to stay young.
Forever young.
So we have a show.
We do.
We've been playing some, or we've got some ASL topics to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, what's in the box?
What is in the box, Jeff?
Well, it's a issue of Dispatches from the Bunker, number 53.
Yes, 53. Because last time or earlier you did 54.
Yeah.
Well, we also got 53 to look at relatively briefly. And you find the usual front page and the kinds of background you talked about before, Jeff, with what was going on at the time, contests, tournaments.
Yeah, tournaments going on.
Right, table
kind
of
of
contents.
bantery, cozy, bantery, newsy kind of stuff. It's really fun to read. It's a really good magazine. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, the local stuff going on.
Yeah.
Pictures of the trophies made by Joe Leosi that we interviewed him.
Love those.
Leo Chi, I think it was. Tussle in the Tundra. And the scenarios. This one is called East Front Series number 10, Below That Bridge by Stephen Swan. We interviewed him too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's taking place in 1943 by the rail line in Russia, I'm thinking. Bryansk-Gomel rail line. The background: during February, they successfully damaged or destroyed 12 bridges behind the 16th Army. And in March, in the Bryansk area, on orders from Soviet central staff, attacked 5 bridges in force, 4 of them important ones. And it successfully blew up 3 bridges. And so then this action is taking place at one of those bridges. It's on board 6A, which is an interesting giant riverboard that I have not played on yet. I don't think so. And you put the railroad across, railroad bridge, overlay railroad 1 and 2. forces are a kind of standard partisan 337s. There's about 10, a couple of the first lines, but 4 DCs. So the goal here is to
blow up the bridge.
Yeah, which I always love those.
And are there special scenario rules like the way they set up the DCs and how close they have to be to the DCs and stuff like that? They had that in the previous issue.
No.
Okay.
Yep. Very simple, straight up game.
Okay.
So I guess you'd use the regular rules for destroying it. And the Germans are defending. Second line, conscripts, 8 of those squads. The usual little machine guns and 1 mortar.
Mm-hmm.
So, looks good.
Fun.
Next one is France 1940, series number 3. Vince Lewansky is the designer. France 1940, Rommel's invaded. The Queen's own Cameron Highlanders are pictured here on this scenario card. And it notes were the last regular British infantry unit to wear kilts into battle.
I'd like to see that.
I thought you'd like that.
I would.
They attacked and routed Battalion Kramer, chasing them back across the canal. And so this battle takes place across the river on board 40. And then board 46 is in there, some overlays. And to win, the Allies have to have a number of firepower put onto a hex there across the river. Nice color pictures of the tanks. I like those in this. And special rules, you would place a pontoon bridge counters across the river. And
okay.
Entry of a pontoon bridge hex costs a quarter of the movement of a tank. So that's kind of the special stuff there.
And this is in France, early war.
Yes.
Okay.
So the tanks are, you get the Samua things and the light tanks for the French. Germans have Panzer III and 4, looks like. The next one, Battle of the Bulge Series number 3. Happening in Belgium, December 17, 1944. Apparently, Piper was low on fuel and he was getting some refilling from American supplies that he captured. And then doing this look to find another way to kind of move. It's taking place on board 9B. And Americans to get an immediate victory with 35 casualty victory points. But the Germans win otherwise by controlling all the buildings in this area. It's 5.5 turns. Americans have 2 tank destroyers, the M10s, and the SS are the German troops. Panzer IVs and 3 SPW 2511s. One of the M10 American tank destroyers can set up using HIP. Nice little straight up fight.
Mm-hmm.
Last one is a 3-player game, Jeff.
Oh, rare.
Yes.
And welcome when they appear.
Indeed.
So who's this?
Tom Moran designed this. It's called One War's End. It was taking place in China in 1945. The victory conditions are listed down below. And the 3 groups are American, Chinese bandits, and then Red Chinese. And I think the Chinese bandits use the regular Chinese counters. The Red Chinese use the brown, Chinese communist partisan counters.
Okay.
And the American is a Chinese 2nd Commando, an OSS Operational Group Detachment, which I don't know much about.
Gotta look it up.
Yeah. Tom found an interesting action here. The Chinese warlord bandits enter turn 1 in an area. So do the Chinese, a different area. So do the Americans. So everyone's entering from 3 different directions. The troops are kind of similar, around 6 to 10 squads, and DC's mortars, the light support weapons for each group. And then these, I think the only thing to look at special here is the Americans earn double exit victory points for good order units and normal EVP for good order. That's for exited off the west edge, and normal exit victory points for units in a certain area at game end. While the Chinese bandits and Red Chinese both get combat victory points for Americans, and non-malfunctioned American support weapons would be worth exit victory points or combat victory points equal to the support weapons rate of fire, kind of, right? And CVP for prisoners and captured support weapons are not worth double. And then there's special stuff about, when they're equidistant to this side, that side, they surrender, how you handle all that. So that's a good 3-player game.
Okay.
And the real meat of these things is this Carl, what's his last name, Jeff?
Nogueria?
Yes. You like how I did that?
Yes. I did.
So he's got an excellent tactical article, which again makes me feel very dumb. Hiding in plain sight, concealment in ASL Part 2. What he's talking about here is having an enemy concealed. How he, in a game in a tournament, move to draw fire, make him drop his concealment, all these normal things that I might think of. And one thing I was reminded of is when you enter a concealed stack, I think lately I've been revealing the whole stack. It's random selection to see which squad in that stack has to reveal. The others can stay concealed. So the hope is your opponent would roll, he calls it Yahtzee, right?
Yeah.
Both the same number.
Yeah.
And all be revealed. But he says, I'll read this part. At this point, I ended his move and left him there. This is a counter on the board. As a this is the guy he ran up the street to try to draw fire. But he points out the correct move, the lack of which cost me the game, was to then search. Remember how we were searching in the Pacific?
Oh, yes.
For the Japanese?
Yes.
He's saying, move into the road next to the enemy. If they don't reveal to fire at you, spend the point to search. I never would think of that.
I never would think of that either. I always just think it's something that's used in the jungle to locate hip units.
Yes, hidden. But it can also then turn this up.
Okay.
So there are risks he talks about, taking casualties for the search casualty roll.
I mean, this is one of my problems with this whole thing of with hip units and drawing fire, because I do it all the time, and I always feel dumb doing it, because really, as a squad leader, am I going to send somebody out, run down the street? Okay, you guys go run down the street. Well, how come? Well, we're trying to draw the enemy fire using you.
Here's some shields.
Yeah, could we? Yeah. Can we opt out of this, Sarge? It just seems like just a nasty way to do it. But
But in real life,
I mean, are there other ways to do it? I don't know.
Yeah. Anytime you're walking down the street in enemy territory.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a great idea that I have to try and remember to use.
I think we'll remember that.
And then there's mopping up part on this next page he talks about. This tactic, I used to do it some, but it gets into these fine details about if there's, let me see. This is to gain control of buildings, not locations. So if a victory condition calls for control of buildings, this tool is of tremendous value.
Mopping up.
Yes.
Yeah.
The building. It's also of great value when an opponent has broken units hiding in the building and you want to scoop them up as prisoners while taking control of the building.
Yeah.
Call mopping up.
Okay.
Because they have to then surrender. And then he points out that the rule says this unit has to be within 2 hexes of every ground level, but it's locations of that building which is not controlled by that side. So if you've already controlled some of the hexes in the building, they don't count in that 2 hex range.
Oh, okay.
Which it's a little, he points out these little words in the rule that
I think I would play it that way, but
yeah. And how often do you even have control of the building? Partly when you use mopping up,
right.
But it's true. And then there's talks about the surge casualties and then the possible results of all this. And there's different reactions for hip units versus concealed units. And he goes into great detail explaining that for mop up. And he's not done. So you get more. There are certain types of terrain that allow for concealment to be kept. And he talks while moving, non-assault movement in line of sight, trenches, bocage. He goes into some great examples of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then looks at even more cases where concealment, do you drop it or do you keep it? To routing units, of course, things like that. But there's even more gems in here. He points out that sometimes you want to drop concealment when a person's routing, because then you're forcing them to take interdiction.
Right.
And if they're adjacent to an enemy, that makes them surrender to that unit. So it's more valuable to drop concealment and take that guy prisoner. And other cases like that. So great work.
That's worth the price of the magazine right there. Very much worth it.
Dispatches from the bunker.
Vic Provost doing a good job.
What else do we have?
Well,
in the box.
We do have something in the box today.
The box.
A very nice toy, a prize. Well, Covered, which is a scenario pack from Broken Ground Design.
Ooh.
And they have been a sponsor in the past,
sponsor.
And we still love them. So this is 13 scenarios. This comes with the 13 scenarios plus a board. And the reason why they call this Covered is because it uses lots of overlays. In fact,
not so many that you wouldn't want to set up the game.
No, but if your overlays are feeling left out, unappreciated, unloved, then you're going to want to get this scenario pack. It comes with a nice board, which is called BG1, which is, I guess, stands for Broken Ground 1.
Ooh, can you pull it back a bit?
So, yes, for those people not watching, it's a board.
And it has the best art for a lumberyard I think I've ever seen.
Oh, it's a very nice lumberyard. Yes, you're right. So yeah, there's lumberyards and wooden buildings, a couple of stone buildings, road, some grain. Just an interesting flat board. But, and like I say, this board is used in all 13 scenarios that come in this pack, and you put just, depending on scenario, different overlays on this. And then there are other boards utilized too. So if you're going to play all these, you're going to need boards 3, 16, 18, 56, 57, 58, 70, and 85. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there that hear me rattle that off and think, yes, I've got all those. Or, oh, gee, I'm missing one. Plus all these overlays, which I won't read them all, but it does take a lot of overlays. So if this is your first foray into Advanced Squad Leader, this is probably not the pack for you. But for those others of you that have played many times and have all the stuff, this would be a great set.
Overlays.
Yeah.
And that's what makes that board different in each scenario.
Yes.
And Dave Timon and I play tested 2 of these scenarios.
Oh, okay.
So we're listed in there. So we're famous. But we can say the boards had a different feel, each time
Yeah.
because of those changes. It was really good.
So there's a couple scenarios. I'm just looking at them here, and this is my first look at this. There's a couple scenarios from 1920, which is
Well, I'm going to do
those...
a deep dive on those.
Oh, you are? Okay, great.
Should
All
we
right.
go to the tape?
Yeah, let's do.
All right. Over to me.
Yes, sir. We are taking a look at Covered, the scenario pack from Broken Ground Design. This pack is brand new, hot off the presses, and it is got a. I'm going to take a look at some of the scenarios in a little more detail. Scenario BG1, a new kind of cavalry, takes place in Radzimin, Poland. August 1920. So this is the Russian Civil War stuff going on here. The Bolsheviks against the Poles, and the victory conditions. Poles win if they can get 2 armor-fighting vehicles with functioning main armament off the north edge. So of the board is laid horizontally. It's half a board. It's 5.5 turns. And the Bolsheviks are defending with 9 squads from conscripts to 1 elite. And machine guns now, for all these games here with this Russian Civil War, you have the rule G1.611 in effect for both sides. I'm assuming that is the machine guns have to be manned with the crews, because there are a machine gun or 2 on both sides, and crews are there too in equal quantities. And then the Poles coming with 11 squads, and 5 of those FT-17 tanks, those like World War I early tanks. Here's a little picture. Love that little thing. I think there's one of these at Cantini Park in Illinois, if you ever get a chance to go there and take a look at that. And so this scenario, couple of open ground overlays. There's no assault fire, and Russian early war doctrine applies. And then they have an interesting rule, special rule 4, that a good order squad, half squad, cannot expend movement factors in more than 1 location during the movement phase, unless either accompanied by a single man counter or by first passing a restricted infantry movement test check. An unit fails the RIMTC, restricted movement check, it may still use assault movement. Double time is not applicable for any squads unaccompanied by a single man counter. So that makes it a little bit different. That's BG1, new kind of cavalry. Beautiful color scenario card. BG2 is First Horse Army, designed by Alan Finlay. And that is also in Poland, August 1920, with the Red Army retreating after the Battle of the Warsaw Bridge, which was, I think, the BG1. And it is, again, Bolsheviks, so it's going to have some of the similar rules. Victory conditions. Bolshevik win if at least 6 mounted squads or equivalents exit off the south edge. And both of these little army groups have 17, 18 squads, about equal leaders, and cavalry. Both forces are fully cavalry mounted and entering on turn 1 on the north and 1 on the south. And so I don't recall a whole lot of scenarios with 2 cav forces in them. You can put a note in the comment section if you could think of some more. So a couple open ground and grain overlays added. It's 2 boards, board 16, broken ground design, board 1. Comes with this pack. And treat the woods as brush and buildings wooden, and treat it as huts. So this is out backwoods somewhere. or the back open ground grain area somewhere. At game end, the exit victory conditions are increased by 1 squad for each Bolshevik squad that is dismounted, broken, captured, or eliminated. And exit victory conditions are decreased by a squad for each Polish squad that's dismounted, broken, captured, or eliminated. So if we think about that, so what that makes you want to do is, if you are the Bolshevik, you want to stay mounted and you want to stay alive, of course. And if you are, and you also want to then eliminate, because you could decrease the exit victory conditions by dismounting, breaking, or capturing or eliminating the poles. So I think that rule is designed to keep everyone mounted and have this be some kind of nice, fun little chase game. And another rule that's interesting is the everyone's elite. All MMC are considered elite and become fanatic if battle hardened. So the Bolshevik 9-0 leader is a commissar. I guess you want to get back on your horses to, if you can, at any time during the game before the end of the game, modify those exit conditions for the Bolsheviks. So it also says in the aftermath here that the Battle of Komarov was the last grand cavalry versus cavalry battle in European history. Broken Ground Scenario 3, designed by Pete Schelling, is Ebro Tide. Now, this one, Timon and I play tested it a lot. It's the Spanish Civil War, 1938, and the nationalists and Republicans. The nationalists, well, here's the victory condition. Provided no hex of the Republican setup area is occupied by a good order nationalist multi-man counter, the Republican wins immediately upon scoring 20 victory points by gaining a bunch of buildings, exit victory points for exiting the south edge, CVP for prisoners captured equipment, prisoners and captured equipment. So they want to get prisoners, and controlling building 18, overlay Z2, that's 5 points. And is marked those on the map. You can see the buildings you need to get. There's this little town section in one part. There's a river, and then the Republicans have 10 squads or so on this side of the river toward the nationalists, and the 12 unit squads coming on across the river. There is, by special rule, Republican player can specify 2 adjacent river hexes as being fordable by a fording line. It's rule E6.6. Woods are light woods. I remember this frustrating me many times during the game. Of course, you use the Russian counters for the blah, blah, blah. A lot of options, a lot of options in this thing. More special rules in the back. And I know one play test, I remember like my forces I set up the nationalists can get 5 guys that set up on or east of row T and south of the river. So they're over toward the city, and then the hill hexes get 3 squads, and they got overrun real easy with a big mortar. So don't set up too far forward. You want to maybe set up further back, and then 7 squads entering on turn 3 on the south edge, trying to cut off people leaving. So with all that going on, it's a lot of variety of stuff. And I remember one game, my guys defending the river crossing, and the initial troops got blown out, and then it was bad all the way down. And then another one, we had trying to infiltrate the little city on the board up near the river, about center of board BG1, and board 18. Well, BG1, 18's a bunch of hills, so you got all this line of sight stuff going on, and ways to run around and try not to be seen. So this one's going to just be a lot of fun, a lot of replayability for you also on BG3, Ebro Tide. Picture of the guys on the footbridge. BG4, designed by Robert Hammond, is a wild irregular gunfight. And yes, it is, boys and girls. Dave and I also play tested this one, which has half aboard 85 and BG1 in this, and it's taking place September 1939 in Poland, and you have some SS troops of various quality coming on board and to win. Okay, the Germans can't suffer 16 CVP, and they also need to earn 12 or more victory points, with 1.5 being for each multi-hex building, with 1 point for each one in a certain row, and then 1 victory point for each AC armored car, with a functioning main armament exited from hex 85Y1 on turn 5, and a half point for ACs exited from that hex on turn 6. So there's a timing issue here. If no AC is exited, the German player suffers a -1 penalty. So that's complicated. Victory condition, one of Jeff's favorite type, but it helps make it a wild irregular gunfight, as the title of the scenario says. So I recommend it highly. Dave and I had a blast with this one. There are some regular German squads mixed in with the SS ones and these little armored cars with CMGs, and then one has a 20L, and then the special rules going into this were Polish player may use Polish partisan concealment counters freely, and there's really like some rows of buildings, I remember, as the Germans are coming in. So you got some different options of defending from the assault fire. The Polish elite have their broken morale level increased by 1. Partisan, some normal rules for partisans, but and there's some rules for the Germans have an ELR of 4, but SS multi-man counters still have an underlying morale level. German second line are not SS, but are green. So that's that mix of the German troops coming in. But there's this really neat part with the Polish reinforcements. There's a draw pile of 6 cards, literal playing cards, and 2 are red and 6 are black. And at the end of each Polish movement phase, the Polish player draws 2 cards from the draw pile. And each black card drawn, they receive partisan reinforcements. Units are immediately placed on board in a randomly determined building location, free of armed German personnel, making it, again, a wild, irregular gunfight. For each red card drawn, no reinforcements. In either case, the drawn card is removed from play. And so then you can see that on the counter artworks, they show you the cards and then the types of little squad you get. Half squad, leader, to join the wild irregular gunfights. And great replayability on that scenario also. Tight game, 6.5 turns. And ground design number 5, Frostadt Frolic. This one's designed by Alan Finlay. It is a 6.5 turn romper with the Germans in 1939 and the Poles, September 1939. And the victory would go to the Poles if they control 4 of 6 stone buildings within 3 hexes of 56 Pete 4. And the Poles have at least 8 combat victory points in prisoners. So interesting that just did some shows on prisoners, and now a bunch of scenarios are giving you points for getting them directly, not counted as double at the end. So you have to get the prisoners to win this one. You have a garrison that sets up around on board 56. There's 8 Germans here, and then 5 others that set up for those guys, and then a reinforcement group on turn 1 from the west edge with the motorcycles, and 1 motorcycle counter with the sidecars. Those 4 squads come on there on the west. And this is, again, BG Board 1 and 56. And then the poles set up on hexes numbered greater than 4 and greater than 2 hexes away from all the German units that are already set up first. And that's 11 first line and 2 medium machine guns. And then entering turn 1 are 4 squads at Taczanka and 4 cavalry units. And then entering on turn 2, you get these little vehicles, these TK, is it 5s or TKSs? TK5s, I think. And they enter on the south edge there. He's got them in the picture too. See if we get that there. Those cute little armored fighting vehicles. Special scenario rules: you can only have 2 squads in each building for stacking limits. German conscripts and second lines are lax. So that'll help with capturing the prisoners, I suppose. BG5, Frostadt Frolic. Broken Ground number 6, Last Hurrah, also designed by Alan Findlay. And this one's a little action, 5 turns. German set up first poles, move first, board Broken Ground 1 and board 70, which is interestingly laid over board BG1 in this configuration. Lay board 70 on top of 1 where hex row A of board 70 covers the northern half of hex row Q of board 1. And then the victory conditions: Germans need to transport 2 of these infantry guns towed by wagons. They have to be towed off the board through hex I-10 on board 70 on the roadway. And about 7 squads and some support weapons, just machine guns to pull that off. And the wagons cannot gallop, so I think that's probably going to designed to help keep the infantry moving along with them that rate. And then there's a setup on the south of V where the defense, the 6 Polish squads, a couple light machine guns, and then elements of the Edward Cavalry Brigade set up mounted south of hex row X. That's 5 squads on horses and giving you some mobility in that scenario. BG7, Suxy Raiders, SUXY Riders, designed by Steve Swan, that little beauty. Yeah, he's taking place in Belgium, 1940 May, and it's the French defending, trying to hold some buildings because the Germans win game end by controlling E3 and K2 while having 4 or more mobile SPW 251 ones. And they have 6 of them to start. They enter all armored, riding on as passengers. A mortar, a radio, so you're going to get 100mm OBA for the Germans to start pounding those French. The French are going to roll a secret die roll to start the game. A 1-2, they get 2 of the H-35 tanks. 4 to 5, they get a AMD 35, 2 of those. 6-7, they get a couple squads and a light machine gun. 8-9, they get a ATR. 10, 11, 12, they get an AT gun with the 3 rate of fire, 25 LL gun with the cruise for those and ATR. The initial force has one of those anti-tank guns also. So the Germans rolling also secret pre-game die roll and enter on the north edge with either 2 Stugs, or if they roll different, they can get a Panzer 35T, 2 of those, or if they roll 9 to 12, the PSW 222, 2 of those, entering on turn 3. The Stugs would come on turn 1. So it would depend what you're rolling as to when they're going to come on. Plus, then you can pick either an AT gun or an infantry gun to start off the game. So the special rules, fields are plowed and muddy. So any vehicle entering the grain hex checks for bog as if it's mud. Out. Yep. And the French also have the rule with the cruise. Well, oh no, this is G 1.611. Which threw me for a little moment because I didn't see any medium machine guns, heavy machine guns in the OB, but there's the ATR, so that would have to be crewed by the crew. That counts for that rule, G 1.611. PG9, going out of order. I'll go back and do 8. Testing Mine and Knockers by Brian Martusis. We interviewed him. We interviewed everybody who designed the scenario. Steve Swan, Alan, Pete, over the years. Wow, what an honor. This is in Belarusia, July 5th, 1943. Partisans. The German wins by having no good order partisan multi-man counter within 3 hexes of hex H2. There's a railroad on board BG1. I'm going to add the overlay to run along the line there. Special rules partisans have ammo shortage, and rule A21.11 and A21.12 are not in effect, which is the rule about the lower rate of fire for captured weapons and the rule about the +2 to hit. If you have a gun, there are guns here, but also then the ammo shortage would not apply to a captured weapon. If that's not in effect, then I suppose it would. Still, Partisans 16 squads, 6.5 turns, a couple of crews, some German weaponry in there, along with some Russian weaponry in there, a couple mortars holding off 12 second line German troops, the Police Armored Company, and SS Police Regiment 2. And despite the name SS, they're not SS troops in this game, but they got 2 Panzer 2Fs or 1Fs and 3, I don't know what those are, ADGZs. They must have been presented in the Broken Ground stuff or somewhere. I'll find them. They're going to enter anywhere on turn 1 on the north or east side, converging against the SS, fighting off the Partisans' 2 anti-tank weapons, and they have an abandoned tank found in working condition long after the retreat in 41, which had been hidden by being buried underground, then dug up, cleaned off, and pressed into action. So it says the aftermath. Very cool. Panzer 1Fs were called mine knockers or mine crackers due to their added armor. And they helped retake this now ruined railroad station, which is the hex there. You have to clear the good order partisans within 3 of hex H2. Broken Ground 8, Scenario 8, Germans in German, Gatrman, in Bessarabia, July 1941. And you take the river and lay it onto board BG1, and these cards show you the playing area. This side of the river is not in play. And it's through this hex, so they lighten out the areas not in play for you. Board 57 also. Germans have 12 squads, medium, lights, ATR, and an anti-tank battalion setting up anywhere on board 57. The others set up on BG1, 8 hexes within a certain area. And they need to defend the buildings and points. So to win, the Russian has to come in and control all buildings in that playing area and or earn more CVP than the German. The German player earns CVP for each good order unit exited off the south edge of the playing area after turn 2. So the Germans can try to escape. The Russians are coming on the north and or east side with 18 units conscripts in first lines, and mechanized corps entering turn 1 on the north edge, but half their movement points for the first turn. 3 BT7s, 2 BA20s, and then a BA6. So that's a lot of stuff to cut the Germans off as they try to escape. When it says that the German earns CVP for each good order unit exited off the south edge of the playing area after turn 2. Do they also get regular CVP? I assume so. I don't know. So BG8, Germans in German. We did 9. Taking a look at 10. Boy, BG10 has a fascinating situation here. The Musulmanen Mutiny, which apparently this was a Muslim division, the 1st Ethnic SS Division, 1943. Battles happening in September, consisting mostly of Bosnian Muslims, large groups of Catholic Croats, and Volksdeutsch, which were ethnic German Yugoslavs. The unit was sent to southern France for training. There were apparently these partisan sympathizers within the ranks that formed a mutiny against this unit they were in, but the rest of the men then turned on them, and they have to escape. So victory condition, the mutineer wins the game end if they earn CVP plus EVP off any edge. So they're just running anywhere to get away. It has to be more than the CVP earned by the rest of the SS units. So they're using the black SS for the unit, and then the mutineers are using the blue German counters. There's a lot of conscripts amongst the SS groups. Mutineers set up in this area. SS units are set up around board 3 hex N1, 3 hex S5, and some enter turn 1 on the north edge, and then on the west edge, more enter on turn 2, which is like 3 squad equivalents, but some vehicles, just armored cars, truck, 2 armored cars, 3 armored cars. So still, you're trying to run off. Those things are running all over the place. Board BG1 and board 3, and then 2 of these mount hills on 3 are grain, leveling that out a little. Quick 5-turn scenario, so could be an interesting little chase game. It's interesting. I didn't even know that history. BG11, Just Another Day, designed by Alan Hume. Takes place in February 45, near the end of the war, and the British KSOB 44th Infantry Brigade and has entered on turn 1 on the south edge. They got out ahead of their vehicles due to some poor weather and encounter some Germans, the Raber garrison. It's 10 British, basically, with a light, a mortar, a Piat, and then again 6, 7 squad equivalents of Germans. Germans are second line, British are first line. And the victory conditions, the Germans have got to take building K8, Q5, and Q6 on BG1 board, laid out with some hedges, 4 hedge overlays to kind of mix the board up there for you. That is Alan Hume's BG11, Just Another Day. BG12, All the Blue Bonnets, also by Alan Hume, April 45 again. As the advance rolls on through Germany, the British are going to win this one. It's 5.5 turns. And BG1 has a couple woods overlays to mix it up. And the British will win a game in if they control buildings Q6, R5, and T4. So here you just have 4 German squads anywhere on the board, and British, same unit, mostly coming on with 6 squads, so it's smaller than the last one. Quick play scenario there for us. All the Blue Bonnets by Alan Hume. And the last scenario is BG Yeah, BG-13, Wanmun Whipping by Andrew Hershey. It's Korea, South Korea. Getting out board is at 58 with the mountain hill across there. And then BG1 on the bottom, and it's a 5.5 turn scenario that has some different units here. Well, it's Korea, so you get a chance to break out your Korean units again. And it features the Korean People's Army from the north entering on or after turn 1 along the south edge, coming up toward the mountain, the hill, and that is 18, 19 squad equivalents, a couple mediums, a heavy, a light, ATR. And the Marines are the ROK, the Republic of Korea Marine units, Kim Seong-un, deploying freely at setup and setting up concealed, regardless of terrain, including dumping stacks on board 58, greater than level 1 or greater, with 1 per hex. So you got to spread out. God, sometimes I don't like that. Sometimes I do. So what are the victory conditions? Well, the KPA wins immediately upon exiting, greater than or equal to 22 exit victory points off the north edge. Prisoners do not count double, so not one of those get some prisoner scenarios. Each KPA support weapon exited is worth its portage point value as exit VP. Interesting idea. KPA support weapons and guns count for exit victory points even if malfunctioned or DM'd. Our trenches, 6, foxholes, 4 up there, and minefields set up on that mountain or hill, board 58, with a coordinate less than or equal to 2. So more off in front of the mountain then. So the special rules are your for BJ-13, your Korean War terrain is in effect, except grain is grain and in season instead of, I think it's always rice paddies in Korea. All buildings are wooden, kindlings NA, bore sidings NA. There's an overlay on board BG1, provided it's not ambushed, pinned, or withdrawing. The attacker can declare hand-to-hand. It's very appropriate. At start, no quarters in effect for both sides. Despite the date and the unit of the South Koreans units there, it's treated as a Japanese armed KMC unit. It's rule W3.31, which says it was a Japanese armed unit in the South Korean forces, which were later retrained and rearmed later on. May set up 1 squad with it hip, and the KPA can have 2 human wave attacks. W6.1 rule. The OB given KPA 3 half squads are treated as fanatic while possessing a functioning medium machine gun, heavy machine gun, and then the fanatic counter can be kept off board because it's a special rule. Until the unit possessing loses concealment, so nobody knows. It's right there for you, and that's going to be a fun one. It's only 5.5 turns also for all those units in Wanmun Whippy. It's like a great set of scenarios. I'm ready to dive into them. Back to you, Dave and Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Dave, for doing that, taking that deep dive. This is a great scenario pack. It's so great, I think we should give it away. What say you?
Yes, Jeff, you are most generous person.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, Broken Ground sent an extra one, I think, for us to use as a gift.
That's really nice of them.
So what do they have to do?
Let's see. Did we decide?
Send us an email saying you got us covered, or we got you covered.
Yeah, I've got you covered.
I've got you covered.
Just use the word covered in the title, in the subject of the email.
Yep.
And you'll be entered into the contest to get this very nice scenario pack from Broken Ground Design. And while you're waiting for that.
What's the deadline for that time?
Oh, let's see. That's going to be January 1st?
Sure.
Okay.
New Year's Day.
Yeah, New Year's Day. Easy to remember. So when you're sitting around there with a headache, you know, and you're like, oh,
it's the day after.
I'm forgetting something. Right. I know I'm supposed to remember something. Oh, yes. The 2 Half Squads podcast contest for covered. Yeah, that's a good way to do that. No, but hopefully you win this. But not everybody can win. And for the people that don't win and are feeling bad, you can go to Broken Ground Design, or is it brokenground.com? I think it is.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll take a quick
And
look while we talk.
and buy it, or you can go to Bounding Fire Productions, who is a sponsor of this show, and hopefully they will continue to be a sponsor of this show. If you haven't been there, go there. If you've been there, go back there, because they've got tons of stuff. They're featuring Operation Neptune, Onslaught to Orsha, Corregidor, Objective Schmidt, all these great scenarios and historical studies and module package, Crucible of Steel, which we're going to hear a lot about in an upcoming episode with Mike Rizzi, who's played through all of the Crucible of Steel.
Yes,
Blood
we
and
are.
Jungle, which Dave and I played through years ago. It seems like only yesterday, Dave, but I think it was probably 10 years ago.
I think it was COVID.
Anyway, go to Broken Ground Design. Look at all their stuff. Buy lots of stuff. You know you want to.
And
Don't ask your kids to get you ASL products. Just go buy them. Okay, so that's it for a show, Dave.
indeed,
We got more shows. We got to get this one done so that we can start on the next show.
there's plenty to do.
Yeah, we've got some really good stuff coming up, more contests. It's going to be a good year in 2023. We're looking forward to many hours of ASL excitement.
Indeed.
And
So,
thanks everybody for listening. Remember to roll low,
and rally well.
but not when you're
Not when
playing,
you're playing
you know,
us.
us.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.